What's going on, everybody? Aiden from Birds vs. Boys here, coming to you with another free agency edition. The Eagles are on the board. They have signed their first free agent. They were the last team to do so, despite being constantly in the headlines since the legal tampering period began. And the league year has officially begun, and free agents can sign. So let's get into it all, what's going on with the Eagles and what's going on with some Eagles who have moved on, and maybe some rumors of what's to come still for this team, if anything, because we haven't seen a lot of action so far. But like I mentioned, let's start here. The Eagles are on the board. Ben VanSumeren, if you had the odds of that being the first Eagle who's going to sign in free agency, kudos to you because you are the only one. But the fullback is back. He actually played a pretty solid role for this team. There were packages where they used the fullback and it was pretty effective this past year. He unfortunately got hurt, tore his ACL about 3/4 of the way through the year. He was good on special teams as well. So I think that is a pretty, solid role player for them to have. And like I said, they did utilize the fullback in some packages. So I'm sure they'll be going back to that in the years to come. Now that they've also got the extension for Saquon Barkley, I think it's a no-brainer to bring somebody like that back at a very low cost. It probably closes the door on Kyle Juszczyk. He was released by the 49ers, and fans were like, hey, we've used the fullback last year. Why don't we bring him in? Well, VanSumeren was pretty effective, and I'm sure is probably a lot less of the cost, we'll say, of Kyle Juszczyk would be. And that has been the name of the game thus far in free agency, making sure things are less expensive. They didn't stop there, though, in the backfield, because the Eagles have signed AJ Dillion, the former Green Bay Packer. He didn't play this past year because he had neck surgery, or a neck injury, I should say. Now, specialists have cleared him to return to football activities, so he is healthy to play. He signs for 1 year, $2 million. I will say, this doesn't really move the meter too much for me. I kind of feel the same way about this as about Rashad Penny. This is a chance to compete for a backup role, obviously, because we have fucking Saquon Barkley. But at the same time, I'm ready to see what Will Shipley has. I think getting Will Shipley was the same train of logical thought it was getting Kenny Gainwell is, hey, this can be a change of pace guy who we can trust out of the backfield to catch the ball. He can give you, carries and spurts if Saquon needs a blow. He feels like a prototypical RB2 in the NFL, and you got him in the middle rounds of the draft, just like you did with Kenny Gainwell out of Memphis in the 5th round. Like, it's the same train of logic. So Dillon, his quads are big. If it works out, it works out, which is great because it's such a low number. Like, you're giving him at max $2 million. I'd love to see what the guarantees are in this, because this feels to me like a guy will get to training camp and, no offense, I'll be like, wait, I forgot this guy was on the team. So we'll see what role he does play. But if he is effective, I love it. It's another name that back there in the backfield. They do need depth because Kenny Gainwell went elsewhere. So maybe AJ Dillon is on this team and he's your running back 3. But he doesn't really give you anything in special teams. Will Shipley, I think, might take over as that kick returner role. We'll see about that. But I really think if Saquon's not on the field, you're going to see a lot of Shipley, maybe mix in Dillon. Maybe he's kind of like an insurance policy because I love Saquon. He hasn't had the best injury history in his NFL career. Stayed mighty healthy for this year, I might add. But maybe that's the thinking there is, hey, maybe we just need a guy who we know we can have some durability to him there. But I got a little bit of the Rashad Penny vibes with this one that I don't know if this is going to be for the long run. But hey, it's low risk and it's high reward, which is exactly the type of signings that you're looking for and expecting in this free agency period. Now, with that being said, the league year did start, which means that Darius Slay officially went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There were a lot of talk of, hey, it's not official yet. Maybe he could come back. It's not official. That's just rumor on the street. The reason that it was rumor on the street is because he didn't apply to the normal legal tampering rules. He was a post-June 1st cut, so he wasn't a typical free agent. So when the word got out there that he was signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're like, whoa, not so fast. Yeah, we didn't actually do that one. He did. It's just that the rules didn't apply to him with that legal tampering period. He should have been today beginning to be quote-unquote tampered with. So he signs with the Steelers. Another name off the board there for the Eagles. And it's kind of like what we talked about in our last video, man, that they're going to lose some guys and there's going to be some massive paychecks for the people who are leaving. And for the Eagles, they said today, I know Adam Schefter was on the radio here in Philadelphia saying, hey, they might not be done shedding cap space. And I know that probably is Dallas Goedert. I think if they could throw a penny into a fountain every day, they're going to wish every single time to get off that Bryce Huff contract. Trust me, no doubt about that one. They will do everything in their power to get rid of that. It's like an inverse lottery ticket. They just want to be holding this one. They don't want to be holding the ticket for Bryce Huff anymore. So if they could shed that, they would shed that in a heartbeat. So I think they are not done yet. And again, back to what we talked about in our previous video, the reason for that is it's not the number that you're seeing now. They do have cap space now, but we're talking about 2026, 2027, 2028. The numbers that you're going to see are going to be crazy. And I think Jalen Carter's extension is going to be record-breaking. If Milton Williams is worth $26 million, when Jalen Carter extends, what do we think that is? $33, $34 million a year? The cap goes up in 27, so you might even see a larger number. It is going to be record-breaking. They have to financially prepare for that. A lot of the talk today, as we become cap gurus and put our cap hat on, I feel like a fucking Leonardo DiCaprio on Wolf of Wall Street half the time. But what people have done a good job of explaining, and I'll try to regurgitate it, is it's not even just the cap number, but they're trying to get cash off the books as well as they continue to try to set themselves up to pay these extensions. So Chauncey Gardner-Johnson had a cap hit here, but they really owed him this much here at $8.5 million. The same goes for Dallas Goedert. And that's a good follow-up from my previous video because I'm thinking to myself, well, you don't owe him anything next year, so I don't want to just give him away. But what they're trying to do is get his cash off the books so they could allocate that cash elsewhere. And where that comes in is getting a Cam Jurgens extension done this offseason and then focusing next year on probably Nolan Smith extensions and Jalen Carter extensions, which are going to be enormous, and probably picking up the option on Jordan Davis as well. And oh yeah, you might just have to do another extension for Jalen Hurts. Right now, after Josh Allen filed his next extension, Jalen Hurts now is the 10th highest paid quarterback in the league. Tua Tagovailoa, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, all names that have a bigger salary cap hit than Jalen Hurts. So the day might come where we're doing another extension for Jalen Hurts. Well-deserved, but again, all these guys are well-deserved, and these are the choices that you have to make, and it leads to some painful decisions with people out the door. But again, when we talk about what's the plan for the Eagles, why aren't there any big splashes? That's why, because you did do your big splashes. You hit. You won. You won the game. You went to the arcade, you cashed in all your tickets, and you got the biggest prize up there. There are no big prizes left to go, and you utilized all your tickets already. And that's in the form of you extended A.J. Brown, you extended Devontae Smith, you extended Saquon Barkley, you extended Jalen Hurts, you extended Jordan Mailata, you have Lane Johnson, you extended Landon Dickerson. Like, you gave extensions to all of those guys. You got Zach Bond extensions done, and you have two more on the defensive line coming up. You won. You won every prize that they had at the arcade, and this is where you're left. So that's why you're not seeing a ton of moves right there. But on the plus side, I love where they are headed and what the strategy could be as they gather comp picks with guys out the door. And Adam Schefter mentioned this as well, but I've been keeping an eye on it with the comp picks. But the Eagles are now up to 20 draft picks in the next 2 years. They've got 11 in the first 4 rounds. They've got 17 in the first 5 rounds. Now, why is that important? Well, one, the draft odds are usually a crapshoot as it is. So the more times you can go up and throw a name at the board, the more likely it is to stick and be successful. So right there alone, you're giving yourself more swings at the plate to hit a home run. That's huge. Also, these can be trade chips. If there's a guy that they really like, that they think could be the next Josh Sweat, they think could be the next Milton Williams, they think could be the next Darius Slay, you have the ability to move up a little bit. Think about the past few years and how the Eagles have been able to do that. They had Jalen Carter, where they had to move up 2 spaces. They had Cooper DeJean, where they had to move up to pick 40 with the Commanders. Both times, they did a really, really good job of utilizing and stockpiling draft picks to then put themselves in a position where they can move up in the draft and use those extra draft picks as trade chips. And you can see that again as they try to replenish this roster with quality talent through the draft. And I think that is the way to go. I think that's the name of the game. As these cap hits get bigger and bigger, I think more and more, this is not an Eagles-related thing. I think every team is going to have to face this reality where you have to replenish most of your roster through the draft. The Eagles are doing that. And hey, maybe even use those draft picks for if you needed to go star hunting one more time. I put the chances at a very, very slim that you'd see it. But the name that would even be somewhat realistic, I think, would be Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals. And we talk about the Eagles cap situation. Some of these other teams, my God. And the Bengals, the way that they have to pay guys, they are in hell. And that drives down the value in trade for a guy like Trey Hendrickson, who's on the last year of his deal. The Bengals know they have to get other deals done. They franchise tagged T. Higgins again. They have to sign Jamar Chase. He's probably going to get the biggest deal in NFL history for a non-QB. They have a lot of money to allocate elsewhere, and it's probably going to leave Trey Hendrickson being the odd man out. Again, when every other team knows he's the odd man out, that drives down the trade value. The Eagles do have 20 picks, but at the same time, they could run into the same issue. What's that cost going to be? He's owed $17 million this year, but we're projecting for the future. What would that be? He wants an extension. That's why that trade's coming. So he might be due $17 million this year. What does that look like for 26, 27, 28, and beyond? He is 29 years old, so I doubt it would go beyond there. But that is a name to keep an eye on. I don't think they're out. I saw a report. I don't know how valuable it is or how valid it is that they could still be sniffing around, snooping around in Cincinnati and seeing what's going on. I think the chances are slim, but hey, I'll appreciate it. And I said this about Myles Garrett, and I'll say it about Trey Hendrickson as well. At my age with St. Patrick's Day, to use it as an analogy, you don't go out of your way to logistically plan to do it, but if it happens, you'll definitely have fun. That's how I feel about these defensive ends. The Eagles aren't going to go out of their way to logistically plan and get these guys. If it happens, we'll probably have fun, but I wouldn't count on it too much. But it is something to keep an eye on. He's still out there. I'm sure they'll have a lot of bidders. I do think there's some names out there for the Eagles as well. I touched on them last night, so I'll put them here again. Devin Duvernay is a return specialist from the Ravens. I don't know what the plan is at returner for the Eagles. I'm assuming Will Shipley's involved, but beyond that, you look at the guys who have returning help for the Eagles this year. Britton Covey was your punt returner before Cooper DeJean took over. Britton Covey was non-tendered today. I don't know if they want Cooper DeJean to continue to return punts if he's going to play this vital of a role in the defense. For kick returner, again, Shipley was there, but they also utilized Kenny Gainwell, who signed with the Steelers, and Isaiah Rodgers, who signed with the Vikings. So they're down some guys at returner. I wonder if Duvernay is one of those names. Azeez Ojulari seems to be the popular name at defensive end. And again, that's the position that I'm keying in on the most. We love Nolan Smith. We love Jalen Hunt. But guess what? At the end of the day, that's just two guys. We had about 5 of them by the end of the year that we could count on with Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Jalen Hunt, Nolan Smith, all those guys. We had a bunch of those guys, so we need to replenish that position, and I know that'll be a key for the Eagles. So we're about 3 days into the NFL free agency period, but officially only about 4 hours into it, so there's much, much more to come. Howie Roseman has preached patience this offseason. I definitely have it. I think a lot of the fan base does have it as well. So we'll continue to monitor it here on Birds vs. Boys. We'll be back later this week. I got a few interviews coming up, and any free agency news that hits the wire, we'll be sure to recover and recap it for you. Appreciate it, and talk to you soon.